Okay, so after learning about the set attempts, how to make them, how to send them the message to book the call, whether it's a triage call or a strategy session, that is a sales call. Now we are going to jump on the triage framework. Now you have sent them the message to jump on the triage call. Okay, when you are unsure if they are your ideal client and built a bit of a rapport, instead of doing that in the DM conversations for days and weeks, we are just jumped into the triage call. And now we are going to see the triage framework, how to book the sales call, the strategy session where you are pitching your offer using the triage framework or the triage call. Okay, so as seen earlier also, I'll just give an introduction of what is the triage call actually is. So the triage call is often referred to as a quick call or a connection call or a consultation call. Also, it is called a discovery call by some people, but it's not a kind of a discovery call. Discovery call lasts around 30 to 45 minutes where you jump around all the things, all the problems deep down into their pain points, all those things. We still do this, but in a quick way. Okay, but the purpose of this call is to build rapport, determine whether the prospect is your ideal client, and book a strategy call with them, right? Because this call is centered around just rapport building and information gathering, it is ideal for situations when you are not certain if the prospect is your ideal client, right? So there is never a pitch at the end of this call. Instead, you offer the opportunity for them to talk further with you about working together. Okay, so the whole point of this triage call is to offer strategy sessions only to the people who are perfect fit, who are your ideal client. Okay, so to do this, there are 4 parts to an effective triage call, triage framework. Each of those steps builds off to each other to make booking a full strategy session together natural in this next. So let's see that. So as you see this high ticket appointment setting framework, okay, so we are here right now talking about this aspect of high impact appointment setting framework. Okay, so here you have invited them, you have sent the messages to jump on the triage call to your prospects, and you have invited the warm and hot leads to the triage call. And those who have said yes and jumped on a triage call, then you are going to carry out the framework that I'm going to show you, the triage framework. Okay, the triage framework is carried out only on a triage call, not in the DMs. Okay, so this is a call just to build a rapport and gather some information. Make it clear. Okay, rather than getting the information on the DMs on the messenger, we are getting the information, building the rapport on a call. This is a personal touch you are giving to your prospects, rather than wasting months and weeks just sending them the messages, gathering the information on the DMs. Okay, because in the DMs it will follow, but they will not reply on the same day. So you'll keep on asking each question on every day, and it will take months or weeks for you, right? So this is the triage framework. So first is where you re-establish the rapport that you have already built in the DMs using the 4-step DM mastery. Second is to set the agenda for the call. Third is to gather some information about them to see if they are your ideal client or not. And the fourth is simple, where you transition the focus to offer them a sales call or a strategy session. So let's look at each of these 4 parts in detail so that you can effectively leverage these triage calls to book more sales call or strategy sessions. Okay. So number 1 is re-establishing the rapport. Now you have likely built some amount of rapport with them, usually through a DM conversation or a messenger conversations. Okay. So therefore, the call starts with a friendly and familiar tone as you re-establish the rapport. Okay, you have to just re-establish the rapport that you have built in the DMs. Okay, for example, if previously you had a DM conversation with prospect who mentioned that he is moving to Bali to build his online coaching business, you might say something like this, like, you have mentioned that you are just moving to Bali, right? How was that move for you? Okay, so some kind of questions that you can ask. Just make sure that you are just carrying forward the rapport that you have built in the DM section. So call out that messages and see what they have talked to you about and just mention it here. Okay, so the goal here is to get a back and forth conversation going so that you can deep dive into the center of the conversation, having established a friendly dynamic first. So this should take around 45 to 60 seconds at most. Maximum 45 to 60 seconds. This is a single quick exchange to establish the tone of the conversation. Don't spend too much time. Otherwise, you will be left with less time for the most important tasks on the call that we are going to see, right? The second one is setting the agenda. Set the agenda. So once you have set the tone of the call, pre-establish the rapport, now it's time to communicate the agenda of the call. Now you have to establish yourself as a leader and prepare them for the rest of the call. So 4 main points you need to consider during this call. You need to emphasize that you are working in a set time frame, that is 50 to 20 minutes. You have to clarify the issue at hand, what issue they have that you need to solve inside the call. You need to help them understand the reason for the questions that you will be asking on the call. And you have to promise them to give actionable advice to help them solve that problem, to help them solve the issue they have at their hand. So it's a straightforward part of the triage call where the main focus is to clarify expectations for how the rest of the call is going to go. Simple. Okay? Like the previous part of the triage call, this one should also take not more than 60 seconds. But that doesn't mean that it's necessary. If you skip this part, that can lead to misunderstanding and awkward situation, awkward conversations on the call. So follow this. So the prospect will open up a bit more and will be more honest, since they understand why you are asking them questions and that their honesty is directly tied to the quality of advice they'll get from you, right? So there are some examples to set the agenda. As you can see, these conversations. Okay, so after re-establishing that rapport, continue by saying or setting the agenda that you have only 50 minutes together for this call and I have a call right after this one. So is it cool if we go ahead and get started? Then they'll say, sounds good, let's go. You will say, perfect. So just to make sure I understand, you are seeing clarity on how to do X. Is that right? So you are just asking them question why they are onto this call. Okay, then the prospect said, yes, that's my issue. That's the big thing right now for me. Then you'll say, I got it. What I'm going to do is, if it's okay with you, is to ask you a few questions just to make sure I get the full picture of what's the issue is. Then after that, I'll see if I can give you some clarity on how to do X. Is that okay? The prospect will say, yes, of course. This is how you can set the agenda for the rest of the call. And this part of triage call often leads to prospect opening up a bit more and being more honest, because they now understand why you're asking them questions and that their honesty is directly tied to the quality of advice that you're going to give them at the end of this call, right? Then move to the third step, that is gathering information. This is the most important step of the triage call where the actual thing is happening. You have to gather the information. Okay, so now the purpose of this third part of the conversation is to ask your prospects questions that do mainly three things. Number one is identifying the pain they are in, then clarify the desire and see what solutions they have tried before. Okay, so digging deeper into their pain, desires and solutions will enable you to better understand the full scope, the full aspect of the problem at hand, which allows you to better serve them, right? It will allow you to better serve them during the final part of the call, all right? So the information gathering phase should always last around 8 to 10 minutes. This is the most of the time you're going to dedicate to gathering the information. Okay, so throughout this process, be mindful of how much you are talking compared to how much they are talking. Your role is to ask relevant and helpful questions, and theirs is to answer those questions and expand upon their answers as much as they want. As simple as that. Therefore, you should be talking 10% of this time, and the prospect should be talking 90% of the time. As far as what questions to ask, these questions can easily be divided into three parts or three objectives: pain questions, desire questions, and solution questions, right? So let's first of all see the pain questions. Now, the objective here of information gathering stage is simple, clear. Understand their problem and understand how their problem is affecting them. Okay, so when you do this, you also help your prospect better understand the problem, which often results in new realizations and ideas of their part. Okay, And here are some examples, as you can see, that are pain related questions. You can ask them something like, is there a specific part of XYZ problem where you are feeling stuck? So for example, if it's a lead generation or a client attraction problem, you can ask, is there a specific part of attracting clients where you are feeling stuck? How long you have been dealing with the lead generation issue? How is that inconsistent client issue affecting other areas of your life or business? These kind of questions you can ask them. Okay, you have to ask just one or two relevant questions here, not all of these at once. As you ask these pain related questions, avoid just running down to a list of questions here. Instead, you should be digging deeper into their responses with some probing questions. Like you can say, what do you mean by that? If they respond to those questions, you can say something like, what do you mean by that? You mentioned about offer creation. Can you tell me more about that? These kind of questions you can ask, so it will allow you to dig deeper into the problems they are opening up with. Okay, and this approach will help you to get to the root of the problem while prompting your prospect. That will allow them to think more deeply about the problem than they might have in the past, right? So these kind of questions you can ask in the information gathering phase while asking the pain related questions. The next is to ask desire related question, the desired questions. Once you have the better understanding of your prospect problem, the next step is to find clarity around what is their desire, what the outcome they need. Okay, the outcome they want, and how achieving that outcome will change their life or business aspects. Okay, so this is not only about you better understanding their current situation, but also about gaining more in-depth clarity on the desired outcome they want to achieve. Okay, so here are some examples you can ask with the desire related questions. What goal are you trying to achieve by solving a lead generation problem? Or how would solving a lead generation problem affect your life or business? Or if you should solve a problem, what would that allow you to do in your business? How would solving lead generation problem change how your life looks 10 years from now? These kind of questions you can ask. You have to clarify the outcome they want, or how after achieving that outcome their life will change or their business will change. These kind of questions you need to ask in the desired phase. Then the third part is the solution questions. Now the final objective of the information gathering stage is to understand why they are still struggling with that problem. Why haven't they managed to fix it yet? Have they tried any other solutions in the past? Why they are trying to solve it now? All of these things you need to get. So you need to ask these kind of questions, because it's necessary to have a clear understanding of what they are tried in the past. So here are some examples you can ask. Like, what have you tried in the past to solve that lead generation problem? What limitations you have encountered in trying Y solutions to solve X problems? So you can identify some solutions they have tried and you ask them what limitations they have encountered while solving the lead generation problem. Are these limitations something you would like to fix so that you are not relying on Y solutions to solve X problems? We are digging deeper into the response they have made. With your current approach to solving your lead generation problem, how confident are you that you are going to solve it? These types of questions will help you to provide the highest value for them, and you will ensure that you are presenting a new solution to them and not what they have already tried before. This way you stand out from other coaches which they have used, they have tried and have failed doing. This step is crucial to create a smooth transition into fourth and the final stage of the call. That is when you are going to transition your focus to booking a sales call, right? So this is the fourth step, transitioning your focus. Now the purpose of this stage, the final stage, is to give some genuine feedback and actionable advice and then attempt to book a strategy session with them. Simple. So there is a strategic process. Number one, the first is to provide some relevant, actionable or unspecific advice. Now this can be in the form of spoken advice, but it can just as easily as a video training or a resources that you promise to send them as soon as you get off the call. While this advice should be focused on the problem at the hand, it should also be the high level 3 to 4 actionable steps as perfect for the scenario or whatever problem, whatever pains they have discussed with you on the call. The second one is to qualify the advice you have given them. You have to address the fact that this is the one thing, one piece of advice you have given, or a training or exercise that you are going to share, that this is something that isn't going to solve their entire problem they are facing with. Let them know that it will get them going in the right direction, but the problem they are dealing with is fairly complex and sophisticated. Now, this will help your prospect understand that solving the entire problem is the longer process that requires deeper guidance and coaching. Okay, so remember that you need to tell them that the solution, the advice or the resources or any video training or the actionable steps you are giving them, this is just a piece of a puzzle, not the entire puzzle. That piece of the puzzle will solve some kind of a problem, not the entire problem, and that requires some guidance and coaching. Then the third part of this call is to end up call by booking a strategy session. This is the most important part. This is the simple as letting your prospect know that you are running out of a time today and offering a second conversations to dive deeper. Because you have just explained the complexity and the sophistication of the issue they are dealing with, they are aware that you are only touched the tip of the iceberg, a piece of a puzzle in this conversation, in this call. Therefore, they'll be much more likely to take you up on the offer. If you get to this last part of the triage call and you are certain that this person is not your ideal client, there is no rule that you have to offer them a strategy session. In fact, the whole point of the triage call is to offer a strategy session only to the people who are the perfect fit of your ideal client. In this case, you can simply end the call after giving them a piece of advice, thanking them for their time, and letting them know that they can reach out to you if they have any questions. Or you can point them to another coach or consultant if you know someone who may be able to better help them. As simple as that. Okay. Now, what if you don't come up with actionable advice to give it to your prospects? Now, the thing is, the more triage call you have, the easier it will become for you to offer valuable insights on the spot on the call. If you still feel anxious about going blank when it's time to offer advice, there is a quick tactic to it. Remember that you made a list of specific problems that your ideal clients is facing and the mistakes that they are making. Maybe in the foundational module or the offer creation module where you identify your ideal clients, right? Okay, so if you have already defined your ideal client and the prospect in the question is indeed an ideal client, then chances are that you have already identified at least part of their situation when you are compiled that list, right? And on that list, you also identified what your ideal clients needs to do to solve that problem. That's the actionable advice you can give them on the spot. All you have to do is give the advice you are already written out, simply tailoring it bit to the prospect pain points they have currently discussed with you on the call to their unique situation. Okay. Or you can say that you are just giving them the resource or a video resource that you have created and just give them, right? So this was the triage call framework. So the first is where you reestablish the rapport that you have already built in the DMs. Second is to set the agenda for the call. Let them know how the call is going to be. Third is to gather some information about them to see if they are your ideal client. Information like their pain points, their problems, what is their desire, what solutions they have tried to fix that problem, right? And the fourth is transition the focus, and where you simply give them an actionable advice or suggestion and let them know that the problem they have is bigger and complex, and this advice isn't going to solve their entire problem, and let them book a strategy session. As simple as that. Or if they aren't your ideal client, then simply give the advice to thank them for their time. Make sure that you only book the strategy session with your ideal client. So this was all about the triage call. This call will help you to save the most of your time on DMs and messengers, waiting for their reply for many, many days. But here on the triage call, they will be in front of you and they will open up if you ask great questions, and you will be able to understand your ideal clients better and qualify them quickly as compared to the DMs and the messenger things or the messenger script. So a triage call script is attached after this module or below this lesson. Make a copy of that and follow that. All the instructions and the examples are given there also. Okay, feel free to make any changes you want according to that. So this is the triage call script as we have discussed in this lesson. Everything is given. Step number 1, instructions given. Step number 2, script is given. Step number 3, the pain questions are given. Ask only 1 or 2 questions, not all of them one by one. Then the desired questions, then the solutions question. So you need to ask only 1 or 2 questions in each part of this information gathering, not everything, or don't sound it like you are having an interrogation of them, right? Then transition, then focus. All the details that we have discussed on this lesson in the slides, we have already added in this document, in this triage call script. So it will be attached below this video or below this module. So make sure you get that. Okay. With that said, I'll see you in the next lesson where we are going to see booking the strategy session with the DM and the messenger script. So I'll see you there in the next lesson.